Okay, let's get started. Hi guys, my name is Ajoy, an assistant editor with the Supreme Court Observer. Today we're going to be talking about sedition law, specifically a recent Lahore High Court judgment from Pakistan, which struck down sedition law finally. The High Court invalidated the provisions section 124A from the Pakistan Penal Code. The provision in the Pakistan Penal Code is ironically an exact replica of the provision in the Indian Penal Code, as both of these legislations drew inspiration from colonial legislations itself, and sedition is a colonial law. The section goes as follows. Whoever by words either spoken or written, or by signs or by visible representation or otherwise, brings or attempts to bring in hatred or contempt, or excites or attempts to excite disaffection towards the federal or provincial government established by law shall be punished with imprisonment for life, to which fine may be added, or with imprisonment which may extend to 3 years, to which fine may be added, or with fine. So to boil that down, the law allows the government to arrest individuals who, in broad terms, attempt to bring in hatred or contempt, or attempts to excite disaffection towards the government. The Lahore High Court said that upheld arguments that said the law was being used recklessly as a tool of exploitation to curb the right to free speech, and they said it was antithetical to the fundamental rights contained in their constitution. While this is going on, there is a similar case currently pending in the Supreme Court of India, a challenge to the constitutionality of sedition, which is the case is called S.G. Wombadkare versus the Union of India. Similar submissions have been made in the Supreme Court of India, where journalists, activists have approached the court saying that the law is a holdover from a colonial time, where the law was even then used as a tool to control and vitiate dissent, in order to make sure that the public didn't dissent against the government, and this was carried over into the Indian Penal Code even after independence. Over the years, there have been multiple challenges to the law. In 1962, there was a judgment called Kedarnath versus the Union of India, where the Supreme Court laid down the test for how sedition is supposed to be calculated, how people should define, how the Supreme Court can define what sedition is, and punishment for it. Not just the Supreme Court, but any court in India. The latest update on this case was from October 31st, 2022. But we're going to rewind a little bit before that. In May, the Union government approached the Supreme Court and said that they had heard a lot of the concerns with regards to sedition law, and were in the process of reconsidering the law. And they said that Parliament would reconsider the law and ask the Supreme Court to hold off on the hearings challenging the constitutionality of sedition. The Supreme Court agreed to this suggestion, but decided to safeguard the way forward a little bit more, and they said that any pending trials that included sedition charges could go ahead only on the basis of the non-sedition charges in those trials. Anything pending which meant that the law of sedition was essentially stayed, and future sedition charges could not be levied on any person until the Union government has returned to the Supreme Court of India and given them an update on where the sedition law is at. And even then, the Supreme Court would have to say that this order has been lifted. This was in May 2022, but So far, there hasn't been much progress. In October, the union returned to the Supreme Court while CGI Lalit was heading the ship there, and they spoke to the CGI Lalit briefly asked them what the status report on the reconsideration of the sedition law was, and the government said that it would possibly be reconsidered during the winter session of Parliament. There have been no reports that such reconsideration has taken place and no updates since. So we're still waiting on what will happen now that the Supreme Court is under the helm of CGI Chandrachud. That's it from us today. Visit the SC Observer website for more, to learn more about sedition law, to learn more about other criminal law cases.